Hello and welcome to the programme. The new inquest to shine light on MI6 spy death. Union rules out strike action over the Easter weekend. And Harry Potter studio tour opens. Good evening. It's the stuff of Sherlock Holmes. A spy found dead in a bag he couldn't have locked himself into, in a flat with no evidence anyone else had been inside. Establishing what happened to Gareth Williams is now the task of Westminster coroner Dr. Fiona Wilcox, who will next month hold an inquest. Today's review of evidence to be examined revealed several new and surprising facts from a DNA blunder which has sidetracked the investigation for 18 months, to the dramatic claims by Mr. Williams's family that other spies were involved in his death and possibly a cover-up. Of course, none of this makes it any more likely we will get to the bottom of what happened in August 2010 at the MI6-owned apartments in central London. Evidence outlined today makes plain what lies at the heart of the problem. Mr. Williams was found inside a waterproof red bag which he could not lock from inside. Two experts will attest to this next month, and Dr. Wilcox is so keen to establish this as fact she even suggested a demonstration before the court. That means someone else must have been there when Mr. Williams got into, or was placed, as his family's lawyers said, the bag. Yet police have found no fingerprints or DNA inside the flat belonging to anyone else, and there are no signs the door to his rooms had been tampered with. This has given the Williams family the impression that, or in their words, the unknown third party was a member of some agency specializing in the dark arts of the secret services, or the evidence was removed post-mortem. I understand there is not yet a specific allegation that Mr. Williams was killed by another spy, just that they were present when he died, though that remains to his family a possibility. Other revelations included a DNA blunder which the coroner warned could have implications beyond this case. Private firm LGC Forensics told police early in their inquiry they had found a mixed profile on Mr. Williams's hand. But earlier this month it emerged the profile was actually that of a scientist who went to the scene. This should have been picked up at the lab, but apparently two numbers in the digital code for that profile were entered the wrong way round, generating a false suspect profile. LGC today apologised to Mr. Williams's family, who had hoped the DNA would lead them to whoever was with their son when he died. It turns out there have been other red herrings along the way. More than a year ago, police appealed for a couple who had buzzed on Mr. Williams's door from the street asking for a man called Pierre Paolo to come forward. They now have it, and it seems Mr. Paolo lived next door all along and his family had simply gone to the wrong house. Around 30 people will be called to give evidence, including Mr. Williams's sister and 3 of his colleagues from GCHQ, who will give evidence anonymously to protect themselves and the national security. Quite what light they are able to shed on the mysterious death of this brilliant yet private man remains to be seen. The union representing 2,000 fuel tanker drivers ruled out the threat of strikes over Easter and said it wanted to focus on peace talks. Unite said it retained the right to call industrial action if talks expected to start next week break down. The move followed more panic buying at garages across the country and the revelation that petrol sales increased by 124% 72% yesterday, while sales of diesel were up by almost 77%. Speaking at 10 Downing Street shortly after he chaired a meeting of the government's Cobra Emergency Contingencies Committee, David Cameron welcomed the decision by the Unite Union not to call strikes of petrol tanker drivers before Easter, but added it is vitally important the trade union in question enters these talks on Monday constructively. The most constructive thing they would be able to call off the strike entirely. Unite and 7 distribution companies involved in the dispute are in contact with ACAS, but no substantive talks will be held until next week. Assistant General Secretary Diana Holland said, "We will not be calling Easter strike action as we want to focus on substantive talks through ACAS. We do still retain the right to call strike action for after Easter should those talks break down. It should be stressed that what we are seeking is reasonable and no more than what is in place elsewhere in the industry. This is not a political dispute, it is an industrial dispute, and the government's recent rhetoric will not help us achieve a negotiated settlement." Amid fuel dispute talks, a government minister who suggested filling up jerry cans with fuel faced growing calls to resign after a woman was severely burned while transferring petrol between canisters in her kitchen. Diane Hill, 46, from York, was recovering in hospital with 40% burns after vapours ignited as she decanted petrol from one container to another, setting fire to her clothing. Labour MPs called for the resignation of Cabinet Office Minister Francis Maude, who had faced a barrage of criticism from the fire experts since advertising motorists earlier this week to store jerry cans of fuel in their garages. Speaking at 10 Downing Street shortly after he chaired a meeting of the government's Cobra Emergency Contingencies Committee, Mr Cameron said his heart went out to Miss Hill. He said, "This was absolutely a desperate incident and a terrible thing that has happened to this woman. My heart goes out to her and her family. Everything that can be done is being done to help her at this time." The Fire Brigades Union called for the government to make an urgent public safety announcement highlighting the dangers of petrol in the home following the incident. The AA has warned of a stupid and very dangerous actions being taken by panicked drivers. In a statement, the motoring organisation said that in Macclesfield, Cheshire, one observer had seen an elderly woman using a petrol pump to fill jam jars. A lady about 75 was seen filling up 20 empty 1-gallon paint tins with plastic lids and also a tray of jam jars in her boot with petrol. She had her boot up so petrol staff couldn't see what she was doing. AA staff went over to her to stop her, then station staff came out and prevented her from doing what she was doing. The new Harry Potter studio opens its doors today, giving Potter fans a glimpse of the magic which brought the J.K. Rowling stories to the silver screen. Thousands of fans are expected to turn up for the opening today, where stars including Rupert Grint, Tom Felton and Bonnie Wright will be putting in an appearance. Visitors to the attraction in Leavesden Studios in Herefordshire will be able to visit and experience the actual sets, props, costumes, animatronics and special effects used in the 8 Harry Potter films. The 3-hour walking tour's attractions include the original Great Hall of Hogwarts School, built for Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. The hall features graffiti by Hogwarts pupils, solid oak and pine house tables which were built for the films, and York stone flooring laid by more than 11 years ago. Some of the most recognisable sets include Dumbledore's office, Diagon's Alley and Ministry of Magic, 4 Privet Drive, Gryffindor Common Room and the Weasley Kitchen. On ITV1's Daybreak, the actor Tom Felton, who starred in all 8 films as Draco Malfoy, gave Kate Garraway and Dan Lobb a personal guided tour around the attraction this morning. People can ride on the famous broomsticks, and visitors will also see close-ups of the costumes, animatronics and special effects and props seen by millions on TV and movie screens worldwide. The actor Rupert Grint, who played Harry's best friend Ron Weasley in all of the films, says the sets hold many fond memories for him. A family ticket for 2 adults and 2 children costs £83. Individual tickets for people aged 16 and over are £28 and £21 for children aged 5 to 15. For more information, go to the Warner Bros. Harry Potter Studio Tour website. And finally this evening, in case you may have forgotten, tonight is Earth Hour, where many famous landmarks such as Big Ben in London and the Sydney Opera House in Australia turn off their lighting for an hour. Households can also join in too. It starts at 8:30 tonight. And that is all for this evening. I will be back with the late news. That's at 10:20 tonight. Until then, have a great evening. We hope to see you then. Goodbye.